Welcome back, everyone. We're back with some more info about cursed gear today. And as I mentioned before, I still prefer invocations. However, I'm trying to do everybody justice and do some testing and figure out what I think is best and most beneficial for everybody. So I have been messing around with these for a while. Right now I'm running 2-piece lashed, 2-piece nettled, and 2-piece tortured. I actually think this is a great combination. If you are a class or a build that doesn't use a shield, you would obviously swap nettled out. If you don't have a dash, you would swap tortured out. Atrophied is probably my fourth favorite. However, Atrophied would work with the build that I have, but this is my preferred 3, and I'm happy to explain why. The 2-piece lashed has a 30-second cooldown, which deals 24% of your damage. Every build and class at this point pretty much weaves primaries in around their skills. There's very few builds that don't do this. And on top of that, this damage over time component that it adds allows you more options and versatility with things like, say, Banquet. And this is just a way of proccing it. If you had the 6-piece on, it would take effect from that. Nettled, super strong. In fact, I mentioned that I thought Nettled was overpowered before it even got buffed. I didn't think it was overpowered for everybody. I thought it was overpowered specifically for high resonance players. And since the changes, it's even stronger for high resonance players and more viable for everybody else. So take a look at Nettled. If you're fully free to play, this might fall off a little bit since it scales off of your own damage. So if your own personal damage is really low, maybe it's not the best option, and maybe you prefer Atrophy depending on your setup. However, very, very strong. 2-piece tortured. Now this leaves a trail of flames behind you for 36% damage. This is one of the highest damage outputs per second available through curses, and I really like this for just the sheer damage. But on top of that, if you're dashing, say you're dashing away from an enemy in PvP or something like that, that trail behind you can cause the enemy to have to go a different direction or to avoid it. And that may be enough for you to get away. So that's one of my favorite reasons. That combined with the ability that we now have to change Paragon points. Everybody should be running 100 points in Gladiator, which also gives you Trapper. So it just really allows you to kind of escape and perhaps stay alive, which is more important than ever now that we have an additional change to the battleground with the idols moving slower. I'm seeing a lot more games on attack being won. So this is just another effective way to kind of advance in that. If you don't PvP, it's still effective. You can dash through mobs as you go to the other pack to finish them off, or you can just dash through them if you're strong enough and kill them just from this when you know it's up every 30 seconds. Again, similar to Lash, a 30-second cooldown just from the 2-piece. Very strong. For a variety of negatives. The only reason I'm mentioning this is just so you can see that they're all different. I don't like stacking any of them unless it's something you just don't use. In this case, I would be okay with stacking damage dealt by my summons, perhaps even continual damage, but that's the only reason I'm showing it. Like I said, is just to show you that I'm scattering them around and I'm not stacking any negative too high at this point. So a lot of people been mentioning questions, and this is probably the number one FAQ that I've had. I'm using X curse and it doesn't work when I use X ability. Well, if you have, say, tortured, which is the dash curse, and you have a dash ability, this will never leave a trail. And you'll see I have used Shield of Zen dash, Mystic Strike, and Flying Kick. It will never leave a trail until I go and find a mob and get into combat. Now, if I dash over here, now you see that trail down here. So you have to be into combat. Same thing. I can primary attack all day. My howlers will go out, but I will not proc that lashed until I get into combat. And there you can see it. So to really be sure whether or not these abilities do work for what you're setting up, make sure that you go and test it that way. And I don't mind answering the questions if you have them, but I see a lot of people saying, oh, I use my purification shards and it doesn't work for this. Now I'm out of shards. And it might not be the case. So make sure that you test it properly or ask somebody before you do so. Hope all this info helps. If you have more questions or comments about curses, as I said, I've done a lot of testing to this point, settled it on these myself. Welcome to share your thoughts as well. Don't worry, I did go back and get the Monstrous Essence, but I also want to mention one other thing. And I just want to be clear that I prefer 2-piece for 3 different choices. I just like the variety in which I can have things proc. And I want to reiterate that I did in the last video. If you have ones that have 30-second cooldowns with 2-piece, it will be 20 seconds, 15 seconds, 12 seconds, 9 seconds as you add pieces. And for 90, it will be 90, 60, 50, 40, 30. And personally, I just find having a variety of options and ways to proc this allows you to capitalize it on more frequently than if you just have a single proc that may occur, say, every 30 seconds. So that's it. Thanks for taking the time to watch, and have a great day.